Okay, I'm going to make a quick video on how I source wood chips. Now, obviously, this is not going to work for everybody, um, but this is what works for me and has worked multiple times for me in this area. I am in Northeast Arkansas, and so it's worked here, and I lived just on the Arkansas side of the Mississippi River across from Memphis. So for a long time, I was working in Memphis, but living just across the river in Arkansas. So, we do have a lot of trees in this area. There's a lot of agriculture, but there is significant tree, and there's a lot of tree work, suburban, urban, all that kind of stuff. Storms come through. So, what has worked for me, and is it's not necessarily quick. Takes a little bit of planning. I think in Marion, the first time I did it, it took me a year or two before I was able to start getting wood chips, but eventually I was getting as many as I could possibly use, wood chips and leaves. And at that time, I was doing 3 different gardens, and I probably the last year got easily 20 to 30 of the big, truck. These are not pickup truckloads. These are the regular tree service trucks. 20 to 30 loads a year, just of wood chips between the 3 gardens in one town. And then when I came over here to Jonesboro, I had already been trying to get hookups for the wood chips so that when I actually needed them, it was much easier. Okay. So here's the process. First and foremost, you got to look at this from the point of view of the tree service. Whether they're a local tree company, arborist, or even the contractors through the utilities. Now, in Arkansas, you can get on Entergy. It's one of the big electrical companies and they of course maintain their lines. They've got kind of a chip drop type web page. You can sign up for that. I never got any from that, but who knows. So, but coming at it from the point of view of the arborist for the tree service, you want to be the most convenient place for them when they're in that area. And sometimes in this area, without another place to drop, they may have to drive all the way across the county, halfway across or almost all the way across the county to get to wherever, the incinerator or wherever. They can't put them in the landfills. That's illegal in, I believe, in all of the U.S. But wherever they're dropping them, and then come all the way back. And that could be, depending on traffic and stuff like that, that could be an hour, hour and a half round trip from where they're doing a job. So being close and being accessible to them will get their attention. As a part of that, where they're going to drop it, and this is not going to work for people who are in the middle of town or suburbs and just have a normal lot, usually, unless, but they need to know where to drop it, and they need to be able to drop them any time of any day. They're not going to be working at night, but they don't need you. If you have to be there to open a gate or something for them to be able to drop it, you're not going to get them. Okay. They need to, when they're in the area, be able to pull up, dump, and pull out without getting stuck, without causing ruts, without risk of when the truck's going up to dump hitting power lines, without obstructing traffic, without causing a hazard to themselves or anybody else. So, literally, they need to be able to pull one of those trucks in, dump it quickly, safely, without getting stuck or damaging anything, and out. And if they can do that, because the quicker they can get there, dump it, get out, then the quicker they can get back to the job, or if it's the end of the day, the quicker that they can get home. So, like that's going to be important. Okay? Remember, you need to be a convenience to them, not them be a convenience to you. Just like selling a product, you got to, they have a problem disposing of wood chips, and you've got to be the best solution to that problem. Okay. Now, once you've got a location where you want them, and depending on the property, not just at this address, but where on the property. So, what I will usually do is I will actually make up a map, like a Google Earth map of the property, maybe a little bit surrounding, not too big, but a clear indication of the property itself. Where you want the wood chips dumped is marked, and the ingress and egress. And I have copies of those in my vehicle at hand. I've got I've got my name, my phone number, my email address, and of course the address of where to put things. Um, and reiterate, they can drop anytime, any day. You don't have to be there. They don't necessarily have to call you, before dropping there. Make it as convenient as possible for them. Now then, you've got it identified. You got these maps. Now, how do you get them in the hands? Well, obviously, in being convenient for them, they're not going to drive across the county to do that. They're going to be close to you. So when you're out and about driving around, if you see a truck doing tree service and they have a chipper, not all of them have chippers, but if they have a chipper and they're working in the area, that's who you want to talk to. So pull over. If they are actively dropping limbs and chipping them, stay out of their way. Do not become a hazard for them. Do not have them having to keep an eye on you. So stay well out of that way. Sometimes you can, by watching a little bit, you can kind of determine who's the boss of the crew. If you can get around, very, very safely, a wide berth, get around, you want to talk to that person. But again, don't try to talk to them when they're in the middle of dropping limbs and chipping. Wait till they stopped, if at all possible. Again, you want to be a convenience. You don't want to be a hassle for them. When you can, talk to them, tell them who you are, what you're looking for, yada, yada, yada. Give them a map. If and when it is safe and you have their permission, I would highly, highly suggest you look in the back of the truck. You're looking for two things. Number one, what size are the chips? Just because they have a chipper doesn't mean it's being chipped up small, and you don't want any and everything being dumped. You want actual chips. Now, if you're wanting it for mulch, you want the bigger chips. If you want it for compost, you want smaller chips, or something in between, something like that. You don't want, when they're running it through the chipper that has not been maintained, the knives aren't sharp, the gap isn't set, things like that, and basically it's beat up limbs. I mean, if you've got a gully to stuff or something of that nature, a depression, and you're going to be piling it in feet thick, and you can get them to dump it in it or very near it, or you have a tractor or something to move it, okay, I can see that. Most of us are going to be moving this by hand with compost forks, okay? Some kind of a pitchfork kind of thing. So the beat up limbs and stuff are next to impossible to move with a fork. So you want the actual chips that you can use a fork with. And I say a fork, it's not a pitchfork and it's not a shovel. It's one of they call them manure forks, compost forks. Not really a hay fork, but it's usually got 5 or 6 fairly wide spaced heavy tines that you can, it's about this wide, probably about a foot and a half wide. That's what works best for me, moving wood chips and stuff. So you've got the place, it's safe, it's convenient. You found somebody doing work in the neighborhood, you safely approach them, talk to the boss, give them a map, look at the wood chips, make sure that it is what you want. At that point, it may be that day, it may not be for 6 months, but at some point, hopefully, and you may have to do this a couple times, at some point, hopefully, they'll be in the area, and even if they've got a list of people, if they got a list of 10 people and all of them on the other side of town, and they're 2 blocks from your place, you're going to get them because it's more convenient for them. That's the key. Now, one thing I did do one time, just to kind of help facilitate this, is it was the every 2 or 3 years when they come through and trim all the power line, trees around the power lines. So they were in the area and coming my way. This was the big utility company using contractors. This particular crew happened to be Mexican or South American, doesn't really matter, but they take a lunch. At some point, they take a lunch, and they usually sit down under a tree, someplace where it's shady, and they take a lunch. Well, when they started getting closer, I happen to have chickens, and I've got a garden, all that kind of stuff. I would catch them on the lunch break, give them some sodas, give them some hard-boiled eggs, give them, if I had a watermelon or whatever. Basically, I'm buttering them up. I'm brown-nosing the crap out of these people, and they're working their butts off, so it's appreciated because I'm not just trying to butter them up. I'm genuinely giving them a gift, in the hopes that they'll, help me out a little bit. And when they got down to my property, I had 2 magnolia trees somebody had planted right underneath the power lines, and they were just constantly having to come through and give them reverse mohawks and stuff like that. So I was in their good graces by the time they got to my property. So not only did I get them not to just trim the trees, but to take them all the way down, they also cut the tree up into manageable size blocks, and they dumped the contents of the truck that they already had to that point there. So I got the trees down, which in my area at that time probably would have been $1,000, $1,500 per tree to drop for free. Plus they cut them up. They didn't just drop them and leave huge logs. They put them in manageable blocks, and I got the wood chips. What I did with that is I made a hugel bed right on top of where the stumps. So I didn't have to grind the stumps or nothing. I just started with the biggest pieces of, blocks, putting compost on that, next size blocks. Just made a small little kidney-shaped hugel bed in my front yard on a corner lot in the middle of town, and planted squash and asparagus and strawberries and stuff on it. So, and then patience. So, that has been my key in this area. Have a place to dump it, identified, make sure the access, the ingress and egress are extremely easy, convenient, and safe from all aspects. Have a map with your information on it. Catch them in the neighborhood. When they're in the neighborhood, you can also, drop by or call them and email them that map and stuff like that. That helps, but I've had more luck catching them actually on a job in the given area. And then looking in there and making absolutely sure that they're really chipping it up the way you want it, because the city of Marion had a chipper and they didn't maintain it, and I got a couple of those loads, and it was a pain in the rear. I do the same thing with landscape companies for leaves. When it starts getting close to fall, they make money sucking up leaves. I got to dump them someplace. Exact same thing. I got the place, ingress, egress, safety, convenient, map, the whole bit. And I've been able to get, loads after loads after loads of wood chips and leaves for personal or community gardens. That's it.